folks, I'm Melly Little and this is your weekly TA Wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened last week and what does it tell us about the coming one. I do this show every Sunday night live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of what has been another snowy Rocky Mountain day. Folks, I'm actually joining you an hour early today. I'm going to be out in an hour from now, so we're doing the show a little bit early, recording it for you. I see futures down quite heavily, and it's really geopolitical. There's a lot of issues in Ukraine. We've been wondering what might bring this market back. Maybe it's going to be the geopolitical, the exogenous events versus the technical events, because the technical events continue to point north. We had another big day on Friday. We actually closed higher on the GSPC, which is the S&P 500, right? So we broke over swing point highs, right? Suspect manner. Pushed back. We actually did a retest regen, but we did it on slightly heavier volume as we came back. That means two things. We left volume at the top and we left it at the bottom. One or the other is probably going to get tested right away. Given the way the futures look overnight, it may be the bottom. Now we know just from before that we could easily retest, regenerate off this whole area, right? We started that retest on Friday. We did close up above it. We actually tested into that high. That's actually another point to bring up. That high had 40.145. We did it with 39, so we went over it. That top was 1858.71. We went over it, stayed over it, right, but less volume. So again, we could test the top. We could just simply come back at this point and do the retest regen. Now, just to come back doesn't mean we'll stop here, right? Because we got support in multiple areas on the way back, and it may come back and test most of them. So you can see multiple places that this thing could shoot for on a trip back down. The green here is the anchor support zone, and probably what's most important to note when you're looking at the TA Today charts, and you all have access to them, whether you're a member, a subscriber, or a visitor. You just have limited access in the latter two cases. If it comes back, support doesn't really kick in until you get way back down here. It's not up here where you'd expect it, and that's because the volume trails, the wide price spread bars, all of those kinds of things are really farther down. And so a retest, a regen may or may not hold here at this point. We may get a deeper retrace, and with the political situation in the Ukraine, Russia's House has given him, quote-unquote, the authority to now push into there if he wants to with troops. They're huddled across the border of Ukraine. They've already pretty much taken over the southern region where they have their bases in Crimea. There's the eastern part of Ukraine that's mostly Russian speaking as well. It will not surprise me if Putin pushes in there and asserts his power, because dictators are the same, and I know that supposedly it's a semi-democracy, I guess, but Putin pretty much rules the show, has for the last decade and a half, and we've seen it time and time again how he deals with things. I mean, you've seen it with the oil monopolies, the Russian oil monopolies. People that have stepped in his way have basically been crushed. It's one of the reasons I don't invest in Russia, and I stay away from Russian gold companies and so forth, because there's just too much risk. And that is that, if he wants something, he's going to take it pretty much, is the way I look at it. So anyway, pushing over the tops, right? Suspect breakout. Came back into it on Friday. May come back into it again if we look at it on the weekly, right? We're over the highs. The volume actually is not bad. This is not a bad looking chart, technically, but sometimes the technicals don't rule anymore, especially when you have these exogenous events. If we look at the Russell's slightly different because it did get over the high and then back under it, had more volume. It's back in doing a retest regen already as well. Coming back into it with slightly more volume, which suggests that it actually could come back in deeper. You can see the first support zone is right in this area. So the Russell, which is a key indicator, looking like it wants to try to retrace some. If we look at the strongest of the indexes, it's the NASDAQ, the NDX. Big wide price spread, high volume bar on Friday. Again, could test top, could test bottom. Given the way that it looks tonight in the futures, it may be bottom first. This one did do a retest and regenerated higher. On the NDX, we never did come back into retest. That would be way down here, the retest, if it were to come into it. Dow Jones, the Dow Jones finally is pushing into that big bar, breakdown bar, right? It's pushing into it with some decent volume expansion. Again, just like the others, that could push higher, but if you look here, you've actually got a large bar you're coming into as anchoring that resistance zone. That may have been the test right there in a failure. Certainly didn't have what it needed to get up and over it on Friday. So index-wise, it looks, I wouldn't say shaky, but it certainly looks as if there's some continued difficulty, shall we say, to get this market up, over, and higher. If I look at the sectors, though, the sectors look pretty good. I mean, if I look at, I'm going to pull over weekly charts to look at these. If I look at the XLB, up and over, this is up and over all-time highs now. Presses over it, has nice volume extension. The all-time high is indicated here as a suspect breakout, but it is way back 2008 highs. It's over them now. So you're getting the material sector leading. You actually had some nice push on the XLF on Friday. If you look at it on the daily, and I'll just flip this one to the daily. If you look at it on the daily, it pushed up some decent volume. Looks like it wants to attack here. If I look at the sectors, there's only one sector that's not showing positive action on a daily, and that's the IYT. Here it is on the weekly. You can see it pushing up, struggling, but on the daily, the IYT is the only one that's really struggling to get back up. I could pick any of the other 9 sectors, and they're all pushing higher, and they're all pushing higher in a good way. So sector-wise, technically, looks good. And if we look at the world markets don't look bad. If I look at, and I'll just flip through a few of these, if I look at the all ordinaries, right, coming back into an area where it should be bought. Nice support zone there. If I look at the Canadian market's pulling back into an area that should be bought, or at least if it can pull back into it. This is the big bar, that's the 12-13 bar. That would be a great place to pick it up. Maybe this geopolitical will bring it back in there for the Canadians to get their buys on. Right now it's correcting in terms of price, not time. If I look at Taiwan, looks good, right? Coming up to the highs, pushing up there. Got decent volume. Looks like we missed our volume here on Friday, but it's pushing up to the highs with volume. If you look at the weeklies on all of these, they look good. They're all coming to the highs. The Hong Kong even, right, which has been a source of problems, actually has an ABCD structure on the daily, coming back in, doing a retest regen on the weekly. The top of that's 23,124. We got the 22,986, pressing it back up with volume. So, I mean, I look across almost everything, and if I look in Europe, it's the same thing. They don't look bad, right? The markets technically do not look bad. They did come off with volume, but folks, every time we come off in any kind of a major way, usually volume expands. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. It's really what happens on the way back up. Do you make new highs or not? We've made them in the States. We haven't quite made them overseas in most of the markets. Well, I shouldn't say most of the markets. Some of them have, some haven't. Some up there struggling. Here's the FTSE trying to get over those highs again, and having difficulty. CACs actually has gotten over the highs, as you see here. So, when you put it all together, technically, this is not a bad looking set of markets. And the reason I'm stressing this is what it appears to me is if we do get a push down off of the geopolitical it probably is going to set up a nice buy, especially if it pushes it deep. Let's go over to the commodity country. Here's the GCC. This is the Greenhaven continuous commodity. I've started tracking this. Nice push up, breaks the swing points highs. This looks to have finally put in the bottom. So that's a nice general continuous contract of all the commodity markets in one. And that one's actually looking pretty good. If I look at the bonds have been pressing back up. Here's the weekly, pressing back up. They're going to try to test these highs again and get over them. Now, if they do, that should put pressure on the general market. So the bonds are actually kind of supporting the notion that we're going to get a pullback. If I look at the markets for silver and gold, silver pulled back, volume wasn't heavy, coming back into the bottom of this bar, 2048. I'm looking at weeklies now. 2035 was the close, so I got under it. But you know, if I pull this over and just look at a little minor retrace into a gap area, this actually looks like it wants to hold. And I do see that gold's up overnight on the geopolitical concerns. Gold had pulled back as well. Actually, volume expanded. Gold looked as if it was going to come in deeper, but we may go back up and test this high before it's over to 129.07. So I guess the gist of the entire presentation tonight really suggests that technically, you know, this market doesn't look bad. It hasn't looked bad. It's done what it had to resolve back to the upside. The issue, though, is that it's extended, and it's been extended. It's just that when it's extended and there's an excuse to sell it down, like the geopolitical, then maybe you're going to finally get that sell-off that everybody has been waiting on and thinking would happen. And wouldn't you know it, it'd come right after the breakout, if in fact that's the way it plays out. So extended, and I was sharing with members this morning, you know, we've had a push up here that was pretty much straight up, right? And then it started doing kind of a 45-degree angle, which is much more sustainable. Now, mind you, it did have a big straight push down, and that push down did set it up in the situation of where, you know, a straight push back up is okay. You get the V shape. We've seen so many of those. Now it's doing something it should do, and that is it's kind of going sideways here at about a 45-degree angle, which is sustainable. The problem, of course, is that you have come off the bottom to the tops here, and you've done it, you know, without any kind of a retrace. And to get a retrace is not an uncommon thing. So if this thing does give a retrace, if it comes back all the way deep into the support area, it probably is going to set up the buy. But I doubt anybody wants to buy it back there, because if it comes back all the way back to here, I'm sure all those good things we thought will be gone. It will be all bad things at that point. So let's see how far it wants to come back, if in fact that's what's going to happen, which it does look like tonight. And then let's see what it does. Right now tonight, futures, it's trading below this high. The next good spot is the top of that breakdown bar, which happens to be the bottom of this little area, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is going to get a swing point low. So it looks to me like that's what's actually, it's not. The low is already here, a swing point low, so that won't. The swing point low is here. This actually becomes the critical bar. One of the things you always want to do is, you know, decide where your critical bar is. It's this one, right? That is the swing point low. That is where trend changed as it broke over this high. You know, that bar kind of sums everything up. If you remember that we sold down that morning, gap down, reversed it, took it straight back up, and that led to this push. That becomes the critical bar, both at the top and at the bottom, and more so at the bottom. That bottom becomes a key area on any kind of push back. And given that the Fed bar over here is congruent with it, that makes it kind of a key area. So to me, that price zone, and I'll point out the price points, on the S&P it's 1809, Yeah, 1809, and the top of this one was 1811. So the 9 to 11 area to me is the critical area, and that's that top green support zone you see. And it's kind of is kind of problematic if that area doesn't hold, because A, it's a long pushback, B, it's prominent. So if you come back down there and you can't hold it, it may be a different beast than what I think it's going to be. But we'll deal with it when it gets there. Right now, the market technically has done everything it needs to. Now, geopolitically, it's going to have to deal with something else. It's been able to overcome all the economic problems. It's been able to overcome all the skepticism. It's been able to overcome so-so earnings. It's been able, one after another, tapering. I mean, just go down the list. This market has seemingly gotten past everything that has been thrown at it. And now it gets one more piece, geopolitical problems. Can it deal with that too? I wouldn't put it past it. I've seen it too many times to put it past this market. All right, I'm going to shut this down a little bit early. It's going to be a half 15-minute show instead of a 30-minute show. We got a lot of changes on the site. If you're a member, even if you're not, there's forums now that have been put on the site. You can come in here and discuss things. Just got put in today. There's also a bunch of tools that have been opened up to you. So if you want to check those out, come check those out at TA Today. Folks, have a great night, and let's see what tomorrow brings. I think it's going to be a shaky morning. Will they buy that gap down? They tend to love to buy the gaps down. We'll see if this market can overcome the concerns that are growing out there over Russia and the Ukraine. Have a great night. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Good night, folks.